Welcome to PA Timber Goose. Today is February 11th. Hard to believe that we're almost in the middle of February and we have very little snow. So far in the southeast we've had 2 snowstorms, and one was at the end of December and the other one was a few weeks ago. Very peaceful in here. Currently I am in Wildlife Management Unit 5C. A lot of the special reg areas are all posted. That's why there's so many deer in the southeast. The places that you can hunt, there's very few deer, so a very big contrast. Lots of deer hiding in these places, and lots of homeowners feeding the deer, so there's always deer in here. Today we're going to talk about deer habitat, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this area has never been logged or messed with, and much better habitat than any game lands you'll ever find. Sometimes when the wildlife agencies try to make an area better, it ends up being worse. And I personally feel that some areas should be left alone, or try to make the areas look like this. We'll look at some of the oak trees in here and some of the habitat. Hopefully we'll try to keep this video pretty short. Special reg areas usually are all posted, and this actually is private property. Currently the landowner will let people hunt in here as long as you respect the property. The deer in the special reg areas are very smart, and they've learned how to evade people and hide. A lot of times when you spook them, they won't blow. They'll just get up and walk away. Still kind of chilly here. I wish that wind would stop blowing. The sun's coming up and it's screwing with my camera. I keep scooting over here. Let's move over one more time. Try to stay out of that sun. A lot of the properties in the special reg areas are posted, so you can only hunt about 5% of the properties. I'm going to visit some different areas in this video series. And we'll look at some different state game lands, some food plots, and some areas that were logged, and some areas that were not logged, and compare which is better for the deer and the habitat. This area doesn't have a lot of dead oaks yet. This is not a high infestation area. So some of the areas I'm going to visit, the habitat is different. A lot of the special reg areas, when you get into places that you can hunt, most of the time the deer aren't here. They only come in here at night or they pass through, but the more pressure you put on the deer, the less you'll see them. They can very easily migrate into private property, and you'll never have a sighting of any of them. So you have to outsmart them. Some of the areas that we hunt in, residential areas, you have about a 1 hour window in the morning that you'll see them, or about a 30-minute window before the sun goes down. Sunday hunting, does it create more opportunity, or does it make the deer harder to hunt? I would say since the Sunday hunting has began in the longer seasons, the deer are just driving deeper into private property that you can't get to. So our current regulations, they're going to add more Sundays, and the seasons have become longer. And I'm seeing fewer deer. Some areas are actually overhunted, and some areas the deer are actually hiding in private property and you can't get to them. So no, Sunday hunting actually isn't helping anything. You actually have better chances when the season is shorter because you're not educating the deer and they're not hiding on you. And these places are great for deer. There's so many food sources in here, it's just crazy. And the property owner will never log this because it's protecting a watershed. So this area has looked the same since I was 16 or 17 years old. Nothing in here has ever changed. The sun is still moving. Sun is still moving around me, so we have to move the chair again. Lots of food in this area. We have a lot of red oak and white oak. Lots of beech trees. Not a lot of bug damage in here. The funny thing about hunting urban areas are the places that you can hunt. The deer don't stay there. They go up into the private property areas and hide. As soon as the hunters start infiltrating the areas that you're allowed to hunt, they'll just vanish. Most of the time, the areas that you have access to amongst the private property, the deer only pass through. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not. When you drive down the road, you'll see them all standing out in the field near somebody's house because they're feeding them. The area that I had permission to hunt, about 4 doors down, there was another farm, and the neighbor was feeding the deer. So every time I went there to hunt, there was about 50 to 100 deer in his backyard. Varied upon how much food he put out, but later on I learned he was dropping 100 pounds to 200 pounds of corn in his backyard. So it looked like a herd of cattle, and I could never get them to come over where I was at. So do you ever wonder why there's so many deer in the urban areas? That would be the root cause. A lot of homeowners drop large piles of corn and feed for the deer, and they grow very quickly, but the problem is homeowners will keep feeding the herds of deer, and occasionally when there's a nice buck in there, they'll just pick the buck off. But the deer herd will expand very rapidly, and there's no way to control them because nobody has any access to get into the areas where all the deer are. I've seen that happen quite a few times. Two of my co-workers over the years, their neighbors fed the deer, and I could not gain access to their property. And at any given time, there's 50 to 100 deer there. Mostly in Chester County. One was in Nottingham and one was in Downingtown. And Chester County, I believe. I'm not sure what county Nottingham is in. What happens when you feed deer and then you have that many deer congregating on your property? You can very easily spread a lot of diseases. EHDC is very rampant in the southeastern of PA. There's been a couple EHDC outbreaks. There was one at Middle Creek Wildlife Management, and a few years back there was one around French Creek that really killed a lot of deer. And does it spread chronic wasting disease? Yeah, it does if you have big bait piles and your neighbors keep feeding the deer. Better habitat is better for the deer. Let's take a walk around in here, check out this area, and we'll check out some deer habitat in here. This is the first stop today. I'm going to stop at another area which is a few hours away, and it'll be later in the day by the time we get there. But this is prime time deer habitat in here. It's never been logged. We have multiple food sources. It's very thick and it's not open. And this is unenhanced by any wildlife management area or local township. So this is prime time real estate here. All right, let's take a walk around here, and I'll show you some of the deer sign in here. Stay with us. Don't click through. Okay, let's take a walk around here. We switched over to the GoPro. It's easier for me to move this camera around than the big one with a tripod. Very close by to me, there's actually a deer bed right next to this oak tree here. You can see the depression in the ground here. That's not a big deer. That's a very small one. That's probably a 1 or 2 year old deer, maybe about 60 or 70 pounds. There's a lot of food in here, and you can see all the oak trees in here. There's an oak tree there. That's pretty old. That's probably, I'm not an expert on trees, but I'm going to say that's probably a red oak. And over here is my favorite tree. There's a beech tree here. The easiest way to tell a beech tree is this smooth bark. Beech trees are an awesome source of food, and I actually prefer to hunt under beech trees rather than oak. And you can tell by the leaves. A lot of times there's always a few leaves hanging on here. Beech trees are cool. They take a long time to grow. Lots of big oak in here. There's a big one there. You can see how big this tree is. Oak trees take about 30 years to produce a crop, and this one's probably about 200 or 300 years old. There's some massive trees in here, and they've never been messed with. A better habitat has old trees, young trees, and new trees. Unfortunately, when places get logged, they say they're improving the habitat, but actually they don't. They take out all the oak trees and hope they will regenerate, but in some areas they don't. Oak trees don't always drop a crop. Sometimes they drop one every 10 years. When the environment was healthier, we used to have so many acorns you couldn't hardly walk. You would roll on them as you were walking, but we haven't had any years like that due to global warming. Now everything is infested and dying. Some areas, all the oak trees are dying, like Clark's Creek. But in this area, there's a lot. Shellbarks are another one of my favorite trees because squirrels love them. Just like walnuts, they drop a crop every year, and you can tell by the peeling bark like this. It takes a long time for these to grow too. These get fairly large, and if we stand here and look, there's a shellbark there. There's one here. There's another one over there. There's a lot of squirrels in this area, and Chester County has a lot of squirrels because we have a lot of food. None of these areas have been logged. Once they log an area out, they say they improved it, but it really hasn't been. A lot of these cuts never grow back. They turn into black birch and poplar trees. There's a mighty oak tree there. That's another very old tree. Some very large trees in here. If you look on the ground, there's a lot of oak leaves here. All kind of different leaves, different oak trees. There's a maple leaf. Lots of food in here for squirrels. Squirrels love maple trees too. They'll actually eat the seed in the middle of the helicopter. Deer love to eat small bushes, and as they keep eating this, it'll keep growing back. It'll keep shooting out. A white-tailed deer can eat about 5 pounds of browse per day. So if you have 5 deer, that's a lot of trimming for the woods. And if the environment is healthy, there's plenty of food for them. There's a few cedar trees on the other side, and I'll make my way over there. We'll take a look at those cedar trees. And there's a reason I'm going to go over there, and I'll share that with you in a minute. And these cedar trees have been here as long as I can remember. They're not looking too healthy. I think they have an infestation, but at one time the branches went all the way to the ground, and it made a very thick spot in here. But there's one here. There's one there and one over there. For some reason, the deer always like to hide under the cedars. Anytime I hunted this area, I would always walk around these 3 cedar trees here, and there were always deer beds in here. A lot of people don't like cedars. They see them as a pest on their property. But all you got to do is cut them down. That's very easy if you get too many. But the birds and the deer love to hide under the cedar trees. Some of them get berries on the top, a small blueberry, and the birds will eat them. Birds love to make nests in cedar trees, and they have a very long lifespan. I have 3 of them currently in my backyard. They're about 7 foot high. When I bought them, they were about 6 inches tall. They were about the size of a pencil. And now each one of them is about 2 foot in diameter. I've actually had deer beds underneath of those cedar trees in my backyard, even as small as they were. There's two kinds of cover for deer. There's a winter thermal cover and there's summertime thermal cover. So if you have something that has needles on it all year long, that would be winter thermal cover. Cedar trees and pine trees are awesome for that, and so are big blowdowns. But for some odd reason, people cut up the blowdowns because they don't like them. With the cedar trees, they cut down because they don't like them. They see them as a pest and they're an eyesore. But the wildlife love them. Thermal cover at summertime could be any tree with a lot of leaves, anywhere that wildlife can get out of the sun. But wintertime, you actually need trees that aren't bare, which would be blowdowns or any type of pine tree. But growing up, I hunted a section of woods where my grandparents lived. And basically it was in Montgomery County, and one of them was behind my uncle's house, and it was a thick grove of cedar trees, and the other one was behind my grandparents, and we would always drive these woods. Year after year, my 2 uncles would constantly harvest doe and buck behind their house in those cedar groves in Montgomery County. So you want to make some thermal cover for some deer, plant a grove of cedar trees, and they grow very slow, so they will not get out of hand. Alright, thanks for watching PA Timber Ghost. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, it really helps the channel. And we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching PA Timber Ghost.